That was Supreme Majesty. Die in a Dream was the name of the song, and the CD was Elements of Creation. Before that, Pyramaze with Ancient Words Within off of Legends of the Bone Carver. And Andromeda led off that set with Crescendo of Thoughts off of Extension of the Wish. I'm Ken the Metal Professor, and we're 3/4 of the way through mostly metal and the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program for this Sunday evening, or Wednesday if you're listening to the replay. And speaking of the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program, let's take a peek behind that curtain for a very short amount of time, because I have some things I can tell you about. So here comes episode 68, I believe, of the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program, and this will be a short one.
Your insubordination will not be tolerated.
And indeed, it's the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program. I'm Ken the Metal Professor, and it's my job in the next just several minutes, not too long, to tell you about a show that I saw last night, and also to let you know some shows coming up, and also let you listen to some audio from some Facebook promos that have been put up regarding a particular upcoming card. But let's look to the past before we look to the future. Last night, I went to my first kind of regular Northwest Indiana wrestling show of the year, and it was put on by ARW Pro at their usual haunt of the American Legion Post in Lake Station, up there at the, kind of where Route 6 and 94 merge together, sort of up in that area. And I say it's my first regular type of show because last weekend, January 5th, I went over to Chicago Heights in Illinois to see a show called Warrior Wrestling. This was the third event put on by that organization, and this is sort of a different creature than the shows that get put on here just in Northwest Indiana. The Northwest Indiana shows are small in tiny venues, and crowds are not that big, but it is what it is. It's like community theater for wrestling, right? You know what you're getting. Warrior Wrestling was a little bit more expansive, so probably about maybe 1,000 people in the crowd altogether. I never saw a count, but I heard a couple of people sort of talking about it. A lot of big names being brought in as a special event. In fact, several of the people that performed at this show had to go to Nashville the next night to be on the pay-per-view put on by Impact Wrestling. So that tells you the sort of caliber of performers that were coming in. And there were some people that are familiar with the Northwest Indiana or the Midwestern wrestling scene altogether. But this is put on as a fundraiser for the Catholic high school in Chicago Heights that held the show. And there was lights, big lights, and big sound, and it was just a much bigger thing than the shows that are normally found here in Northwest Indiana, such as at the American Legion, right? It's just a different category of wrestling. So that was sort of an odd show for me to go to, in the sense that I didn't go there to take notes or cover it or come back here and talk. I just kind of went to watch it, and it was a lot of fun. But I put my WVLP Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program hat on last night to go see this ARW show, because it was their first of the year, and it was my first of the year where I was not just enjoying it, but also looking at it through the lens of talking about it on WVLP afterwards, or writing something about it on metalprofessor.com, which I did. So you can go see this recap with a few pictures at metalprofessor.com. It looks like ARW Pro is trying to work up a little cooperation with another promotion in Chicago called Southland Championship Wrestling, because the show opened with a representative of Southwest Championship Wrestling, SCW, coming to the ring and grabbing the microphone. His name was apparently the Sentinel, and he made it clear very quickly that he was not impressed by the ARW venue or the ARW crowd or the ARW performers, and that he had brought somebody along who could show us the caliber of wrestling person that he was used to seeing at his own promotion, Southland Championship Wrestling. And that man was named Jay Harris, and he came out to the ring. And so, having had enough of being talked down to, the owner of ARW, King Bishop, came out, and he introduced the very first ever champion of ARW, Mr. Johnny Showtime, to come out and have a match with Jay Harris. Jay Harris ended up winning the match. He got Johnny Showtime to tap out to an armbar. So between this and something that happened later in the show, I'm hoping that something interesting will come out of this, where maybe some ARW folks will get to go over to Southland and get into some business there, and maybe kind of help each other grow by cross-pollinating their audiences somehow. That'll be fun to see how this progresses, if it does. The second match was a women's championship match. Moxie Molly is the current ARW Pro Women's Champion. She took on Melanie Cruz. Melanie Cruz has made appearances in a lot of regional promotions lately over the last year. I think I most recently saw her over in South Bend for Revolution Championship Wrestling. She is, I guess if she was a male wrestler, she is a beast. You know, she's very large and powerful, and she means business. And she does, and in fact, she meant so much business that she defeated Moxie Molly and is now the ARW Women's Champion. However, there is an asterisk here. At the end of the match, when Moxie Molly was down for the pin, Melanie Cruz put both of her feet up on the ring ropes to get extra leverage to hold the pin down, and the referee didn't notice. Now, of course, that's cheating, and so she cheated to win. Who would have thought it? So maybe something will come out of that, and the owners of ARW will say that wasn't right, and Moxie Molly will get a rematch and maybe regain her women's championship there. The third match was a tag team match. The Family is a group of no-good hoodlums that run around ARW and cause trouble. There's many of them in the stable or in the cohort, but Joey Rancid and Rod the Lumberjack were the two selected to be the tag team in this particular match. They took on a team called Thieves of Greatness, consisting of Theo Storm and Sedan. And I've seen them also a little bit farther to the east normally in Pro Wrestling King and EHF. So they are more often found sort of in the South Bend area or southern Michigan, but they came out to see what it was like at ARW Pro. They were managed by Damian Saint, and unfortunately, the newcomers did not win the match. But I think this was my favorite match of the night because it was very, very action-packed. And this crowd was kind of small, probably because of the weather, and kind of quiet. And some folks will come out and make a point of noting it and, trying to urge the crowd to make more noise. And I appreciated that these folks didn't do that. They just kind of went out there and they made their own noise by talking at each other and yelling and, grunting and making all the usual ring noise. And I think that actually brought the crowd into it more than, people sticking their hands out and making motions that mean that people should start clapping or something like that. Let it happen a little bit more organically. Hopefully, the Thieves of Greatness will come back and perform again at ARW because they're a lot of fun. Then there was intermission, and then to open the second half, Dave Allen, the Flawless One, who is at just about every show I go to around here, no matter what promotion it is. He took on Mr. 3% John Hudson, who I only see sporadically at ARW. I don't know that he's regional anymore, so this is more of a special event when he gets to come back. And this match was going on very nicely. Dave Allen and John Hudson are, very fundamental wrestlers, and so it was a good contest for a little bit until our friends from SCW came out again and interfered in this match. Now, what this did, even though it resulted in the match being called a no contest, was that I don't know that they're teammates now, but Dave Allen and John Hudson got to sort of stand shoulder to shoulder, even though they had just been fighting each other, and turn and face these interlopers from SCW together. So I think there's a little brotherhood of ARW forming there with this incursion from Southland Championship Wrestling. The second to last match was Nick Cutler and Maverick Cage as a team taking on the Mexicutioners, who are the ARW Pro Tag Team Champs. And the Mexicutioners did, in fact, retain their tag team titles. Nick Cutler apparently has special teleportation skills. This isn't the first time that he's done this. He was originally scheduled to work a show earlier in the evening in Warsaw, Indiana, which is about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes away from Lake Station if you're driving maybe a little bit over the speed limit, back and forth between two, and that's when the weather is good. And so he was on the early end of the card for that show and then zipped out here. You do pick up an hour, I think, because of the time change. That helps. But still, that's a lot of hustle to do two shows in one night. He came out here and, got on a match at the end of this show. That was the original schedule. I actually don't know if he performed at the FWF show in Warsaw because of the weather, but we'll assume he did. And that's pretty impressive to get to zip back and forth like that and teleport from Warsaw, Indiana to Lake Station, Indiana to do two shows in one evening. The main event of the night was Max Holiday, who was a longtime heavyweight champion for ARW Pro, but he lost it relatively recently, right before the Christmas holidays. Ivan Manson is the current heavyweight champion, and he is a member of the family, and so you can expect many members of the family to come out to ringside and cause shenanigans and make the match a great big mess. And that's kind of what happened. The referee wasn't going to have it get too chaotic. He sent some of the family members to the back, but a couple of them got to stay out at ringside. And so they were causing distractions and making a mess of things. And then at one point, I believe it was Ivan Manson was going for a splash onto Max Holiday in the corner at the turnbuckles, and the referee got in between them, so he got sandwiched in between two large mammals, and he dropped over to the mat. And instead of the family interfering when that happened, out from the back rushes Brutus Owen Wesker, or BOW. He's been around in tag teams in ARW for a long time. He's been a member of the Tag Team Champs for a while. So he's a big name in ARW, and he ran out from the back, and instead of helping Manson by clobbering the family, he clobbered Manson. And his declaration was that he was tired of Manson getting the spotlight all the time. And so the referee came to, and he counted a pinfall on... Did I say that he clobbered Manson? I'm sorry. That spoils the whole story because it's exactly backwards. Brutus Owen Wesker came out and clobbered Max Holiday, saying he was tired of him getting all of the attention. And so Ivan Manson got to pin Max Holiday once the referee finally came to. Manson retained his heavyweight championship, and now I think maybe Max Holiday will have something to say to Brutus Owen Wesker. And so the next ARW Pro show is taking place on February 9th. Back at Lake Station, and there's a couple of different storylines emanating out of this show that should carry over. One would be, will Moxie Molly get a rematch because of the inappropriate pinning that she received by Melanie Cruz with the referee not noticing feet on the ropes? Is there going to be more going on with this Southland Championship Wrestling group? Is that a little promotional feud going to get more intense? And will Max Holiday do something to BOW for his interference in the heavyweight title match tonight? So that sort of catches you up at ARW Pro. Now, coming up in the region over the next few weeks, immediately on January 26th, the next show I know about is New Generation Wrestling down in Crawfordsville, Indiana. This time the show is in the Morgan County Fairgrounds, and for that show I will be hopefully in attendance unless the weather is terrible like it was this weekend. But assuming the weather cooperates, I'll go down with the recording equipment and I will cover the show remotely and then get you an audio recap during this time slot the following evening. And you'll get to hear a lot of the sounds and events that were going on. After that, in early February, we've got Black Label Pro, we've got Acme Championship Wrestling and Backbreaker Wrestling all coming up in the first week and a half of February. But I'm keeping my eye on this New Generation Wrestling show because I was there last time. If you listen to the last episode of the Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action Program, you heard the audio recap of the show back in December that set up several of the matches that will be taking place at the next show. And so let's concentrate on that for a second. The 3 matches that are on the flyer that goes around Facebook for this New Generation Wrestling show in Crawfordsville will be the heavyweight champion Justin Myers defending his title against Gideon. There's a last man standing match between Paragon and Jason Levi, and there is a hair versus hair match, which was set up through some events at the previous show. And if you want to listen to that previous show, don't forget that the NWIWRAP episodes are always up on YouTube. Just go look for NWIWRAP, NWIWRAP episode 67. Just search for that on YouTube and you'll find that one, and you can find the previous 66 as well. Charlie Cruel will be making her return. She made her debut at the last show and looks like she'll be coming back. So those are the announced matches on the flyer. Now, at the last show, what happened was that Jeremy Hadley and Luis Rojas, which you heard an interview with Luis Rojas here on WVLP the week before that event, they had a high-intensity match because their feud goes far beyond just the regular fighting over a belt kind of thing. It had gotten very, very personal. And if you listened to the recap last time, I was noting that during the match, Jeremy Hadley had started limping around and hobbling on his foot, and it turns out he sprained his ankle, and he also got a concussion. And so there's a little story that he's allowed to unfold on Facebook with some audio clips that he's posted, little videos about him coming out of that last match and approaching this next one. So instead of me telling you about it, I'm going to let Jeremy Hadley tell you about it.
Well, Rojas, congratulations. Yeah, you put me in the hospital. I just got discharged. I have a bad sprain on my ankle. And on top of that, I got a bad sprain on my ankle, but more than that, yeah, I got a concussion. But I'm gonna tell you, right here, right now, I will return, and this is not over.
So that was released later that night after the last NGW show. And then, a few days ago, came this.
I can finally breathe. I can finally be happy. Because guess who just got officially cleared for in-ring action? That's right. The Warfare Jeremy Hadley passed all those doctors' tests with flying colors, and I am on my way back. So NGW, January 26th, I will see you then. And Luis Rojas, I hope to see you then as well.
So as of a few days ago, things were looking pretty good for Jeremy Hadley to come back and get some revenge on Luis Rojas until this just came out in the last day or so.
So I just got home from the NGW offices. I spoke with Nina Valentine and the NGW higher-ups, and they're happy that I've made a full recovery, and they're happy that I'm healthy. However, due to the fact that concussions are not something to mess with, they cannot in good conscience put me back in an NGW ring. So with that said, January 26th, I will not be in Crawfordsville, Indiana. And honestly, I do not know the future of myself with NGW. I am meeting with them once again in mid to late February to evaluate me once again and evaluate the situation. So I guess until then, this could be goodbye.
And so that curveball just came out in the last couple of days from Jeremy Hadley. So it looks like we won't be getting that return engagement between Hadley and Rojas on January 26th, if we take him at his word. Now, I might be wondering if he would take a page out of Luis Rojas's playbook and make a surprise appearance anyway. I guess we'll have to see. I'm not predicting that. I'm just wondering. The other match that I mentioned that's announced via the flyer for the show is a hair versus hair match between Buck Sexton and Lawrence Bonpafo. I'm not going to recap everything that led up to that. You can go back and listen to the prior episode of this show on YouTube if you would like to catch up. As I mentioned, you can. What I will do is play for you the audio from a video that is on Facebook posted by Buck Sexton, where he is discussing his upcoming match, and he does it in a very interesting video. He's made it essentially like a interview on a news broadcast. The title of his news broadcast is the Crawfordsville Sucks News. The Buck Sexton does not like Crawfordsville. He wears a shirt that says "I hate Crawfordsville" most of the time. And so he made a quick episode of the Crawfordsville Sucks News. And this is the audio from that. So you can't watch it, but you can hear it. And he will interview people close to Lawrence Bonpafo, quote unquote, including a weight bench and a walker. You just have to use your imagination for this one.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Buck Sexton here with CSN News with an exclusive interview with Lawrence Bonpafo's tag team partner. Sir, how do you plan on helping Lawrence beat Buck Sexton this month in Crawfordsville? Yeah, probably not a very good strategy. Do you have any other ideas? Yeah, that's what I thought. A weight bench is not going to help you, Pafo. These weights are nothing but an illusion to your imagination. There's nothing you can do to beat the Buck Sexton. But after this commercial break, I've got another exclusive interview just for you. Coming soon, the Buckin' Barbershop. With our high-scale barbershop, we are going to meet the needs of anybody who is looking to see one of our specialties, which is beatdowns, humiliations, and really ugly haircuts. Just take a look at one of our upcoming clients. Wow, he was ugly before, he's worse now. The Buckin' Barbershop, opening January 26th. Crawfordsville residents are not welcome. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Buck Sexton with CSN with my exclusive sit-down interview with Lawrence Bonpafo's girlfriend. Ma'am, how long have you known Lawrence? 85 years? I knew he was old, but I didn't know he was that old. And can you give me any insight into what your guys' relationship is like? Jesus, I knew I didn't like him, but to push you around all the time, what a lowlife. Anything else you can tell me about Lawrence? I agree, he'd go nowhere without you. You are his backbone. I agree. Lawrence, look me in my eyes. January 26th, you're gonna need this. 'Cause I'm gonna break you. I've messed around with you for too long. So not only am I gonna take your body, I'm gonna take your dignity. I'm gonna make you tap out in the middle of the ring in the company you created with everybody surrounding it. And this will be the last sound you hear.
And so there you have the Buck Sexton putting a lot of work into a creative video to talk about his hair versus hair match with Lawrence Bonpafo. Now, again, it's awkward that you're just getting the audio when it's more of a visual thing. So head for Facebook, look for New Generation Wrestling Indiana, You can see that when he was doing quote-unquote interviews, he first spoke to what was supposed to be Lawrence Bonpafo's weight bench, and then during the phony commercial for a barbershop, because it's a hair versus hair match, on the screen was a picture of Lawrence Bonpafo with his nice long wavy hair superimposed with a Photoshop picture of what he might look like bald, because the Buck Sexton is, of course, predicting that he will win the hair versus hair match. And then right there at the end, he quote-unquote interviewed a walker, a metal walker, talking to it and then throwing it around. And that's what you heard clanking there at the end. So I'm looking forward to this New Generation Wrestling show coming up on January 26th in Crawfordsville. If you can, go on down there and join the fun, and you'll get an audio recap of that show on Sunday, January 27th, right here on WVLP. And as long as I was scrounging for little audio snippets to share with you off of Facebook, I have one related to the Backbreaker Wrestling show, which I will also go cover here for WVLP. That will be February 9th out in Griffith, Indiana. And there's a little minute-and-a-half piece on Facebook where the owner of and manager of Backbreaker Wrestling, Cade Lee, was trying to wish the Backbreaker audience a nice, happy holidays when he was interrupted by Kurt Joseph.
Hey guys, this is Backbreaker Wrestling owner Cade Lee here. I just want to tell everyone happy holidays and let you guys know we will be back February 9th at Hildebrandt Hall.
Absolutely will be back February 9th at Hildebrandt Hall.
And I'm joined by Kurt Joseph.
I need you to move over because this is a conversation that everybody should be a part of. Let's talk about the Top Guns.
Okay.
Let's talk about how the Top Guns cost Shooter McGavin his heavyweight championship. Let's talk about their involvement. Let's talk about how they were the direct cause of Shooter McGavin losing his championship to the abomination that is known as Trog the Caveman.
You know, Trog beat Shooter fair and square.
And that's fair enough, but you had no repercussions for what Top Guns did to make that match happen. You have had it out for us since the beginning. This is the time where you need to pay the piper. We want the Top Guns, and we do not want a non-title. We want the championships. And at this point, if you don't, we will make life very difficult to continue for Backbreaker Wrestling.
So February 9th,
Yeah.
you want a tag team title match of Masters against the Top Guns.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
You got it.
Thanks, boss.
See you there.
And so that's the first solid bit of news about the Backbreaker Wrestling card coming up on Saturday, February 9th. Like I said, I'll be there to cover that for WVLP, so on February 10th, you can expect to hear a good 40 or 50-minute episode of this show, NWIWRAP, where I give you much of the audio from that event and tell you what went down. That's sort of a wrap here for Mostly Metal and NWIWRAP. I did promise you extra music at the end of this episode, but as always, I ended up yapping for longer than I expected, so I'm out of time. I'm just going to turn it back over to the regular programming on WVLP. Tune in next week for more Mostly Metal and Northwest Indiana Wrestling Action program. But right now, thanks for listening, and here comes Punk Rock Radio.